All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for those of you who are watching. And again, this is something I'm doing to try to break down walls and open up the lines of communication between races, cultures, lifestyles. Mainly, my perspective is always going to be predominantly from a African American perspective because I am African American. But this applies to I would think any kind of minority, to be honest. And so I hope you continue to watch these videos and share the videos. If anything, share the message with people. So I'm going to pick up with the last video I left off, which was communicate, don't educate. I let that one sit for a while because I wanted it to circulate and people to talk about it and listen to it and pull from it in whichever way they can. And now I want to go off of that video and the last one, which was cognitive dissonance, and keep building, like I've been saying. But what I want to talk about today is two Americas. There are two Americas, and I want to tell you about the other side of America that some of you may not be aware of, for various reasons. You live your life, you stay in your circles, you may not, venture out, you may not have ever thought about it, you may not want to. I'm sure there could be many reasons why you might not be aware of the two different Americas that I believe exist, and I'm sure a lot of other people, so that we can have a better understanding of where each of us is coming from, so that we can stop fearing or mistrusting or just ignoring what isn't familiar to us. Okay, so like it or not, believe it or not, when I talk about two Americas, is there's, for the most part, there's white America, mainstream America, and then minority America. Blacks, Hispanics, Asian, gay, lesbian, however you want to define it. And again, like I said, my experience is going to be the African American experience. And they do exist. That this is a real thing. This isn't something that's a conspiracy theory or something I'm making up. Ask. Go ask another black person. Go ask a minority, and they'll tell you the same thing, either in the exact same words or different words. And let me describe that a little bit more in more detail. White America. And what I mean by that is this. I think it would be fair to say that the majority of what's owned in America is by white people. Businesses, whether that's banks, law firms, higher education, construction, you know, internet companies, industry, cars. Just, for the most part, those are businesses are owned by white people. I would say mainly white men. And yes, there are businesses that are owned by minorities. That's I'm not saying that they're not. There are, but I would say I don't know what the numbers are, but if you do the ratios, I would imagine they're pretty. There's a pretty big gap in white ownership compared to minority ownership. And so with all that predominantly white ownership, um, what you're going to have either on purpose or accidentally is people staying with what's familiar to them because they recognize it or they understand it's safe. It makes sense to them. So you'll have white people in positions of power who will hire, employ, help, people who look like them. And like I said, some of that's on purpose and some of it's not on purpose. Some of it's just what's familiar. And so whether it's a bank or what any other kind of job it could be, small business or not, if you're sticking with what's familiar and not really branching out from that, um, you're going to keep kind of a invisible wall on everybody else. Okay. And that would probably be true if the roles were reversed. Don't get it twisted. If the majority of the country were owned by black people, I would imagine it would be the same because it would be what's familiar. And you would have a lot of the, powerful positions, manager, supervisor, just all over the world, whatever it might be, people hiring other familiar people. Okay. And, you know, throughout time, there have been things in place, legally, obviously, so you can't discriminate against minorities, or a woman, for a job. These things are in place because of what I'm saying, because that used to happen and it still happens. Okay. Um, just in a different ways. So what I'm doing here is just trying to point that out that it's a thing that exists. Okay. So when you have that kind of climate where you have mainstream or white America, then you have minority America. Minority America is basically when you have black people, um, around other black people. You know, they can be themselves, they can talk how they want to talk, act how they want to act. It's very relaxing and comfortable. Like, I would imagine for you when you get around family or friends, you can let your hair down, you can relax, you can be yourself. So, in order for basically minorities and black people, to live in and navigate mainstream America, we're going into unfamiliar or possibly dangerous or sketchy territory. And when we're doing that, we have to adjust, our behavior as to not appear threatening, intimidating. You know, you, you may even, walk differently. You may higher your voice. Hey, what's going on? Rather than, there's things that we need to do in order to exist in that world because we have to. We need jobs. We need education. We need access. We need to live and survive just like anybody else. So the thing is, we have to exist in that mainstream, world. So in order for us to do that, we have to present ourselves in a way that's non-threatening and very welcoming. So, because if you run into people who aren't, comfortable with black people or minorities or gay people, you have to do your best to put them at ease in order to get ahead, or to even get the opportunity to get ahead. Because, again, we need to be able to provide and take care of ourselves, and we want a better life like anybody else. So hopefully just that in general makes sense. And I can give you some personal examples here in a second. But I'm just trying to paint that picture that this is a real thing. And you've probably heard comedians joke about it and people talk about it. But it's a real thing and it presents challenges. And, that's across the board with jobs, education, you know, financial aid, whatever it may be. Okay, so me personally, in my life, I can recall hundreds of times, when I've had to make adjustments in my life in order to get ahead. Um, in mainstream America. Um, and it's not just related to employment, and education. It's just being able to exist in a safe environment. Growing up again, like I said earlier on, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a not so friendly neighborhood full of white people who didn't like my family because we were black. They had no idea who we were. You know, we never talked to them. There was never any back and forth. They just decided they didn't like us because of the color of our skin. And this is people all up and down the block. Um, and it may not have just strictly been we don't like you because you're black. We're unfamiliar. Maybe they don't have any black friends. You know, maybe they don't know anybody that's black. Maybe they really never have to encounter any black people where they go. So when you put a black family or black people in the neighborhood where they live in their space, I can understand how they might have a weird reaction to that, negative, um, or whatever it may be, mistrusting, afraid. I don't know, whatever they made up in their head. Okay, because at the end of the day, we're people just like them. So, several occasions where I had to live my childhood differently from how the other white kids in the neighborhood lived. Mom and dad told me, not to run between people's houses. That's not safe, Matt. You can't do that. Uh, you might encounter somebody that might not like you because of the color of your skin. You can't run between people's houses. Don't take out the trash late at night. Um, the neighbors next to us, I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but, they were really aggressive towards us. I could think of an example of when, we were playing in the front yard, me and my little brother. I think we were riding our big wheels or something. And the lady next to us backed her car out real fast. She saw us. Mom tells me the story. She backed out her car real fast right next to us as to appear as if she might run over us. Probably to scare my mom. Mom ran out to us and picked us up and ran us back inside. Didn't fight the lady. Wanted to go give her a piece of her mind and probably tear her head off. Mom didn't do that. Um, because you can imagine if police show up and my dad's angry, large black man, I can't imagine that transaction would have went very well for us. Um, because again, you would have if it happened to be a white police officer, he might for some reason relate to the white lady, or be like, you know what, we're the same color of skin, so what she's saying, whatever story she might have told as to what happened, I didn't see them or that, she would be like, hey, Mrs. Osborne, you're just overreacting, or maybe you need to get your kids out the street or something like that. Um, in elementary school, um, you know, when I went to a predominantly white elementary school, and I remember, once you hit a certain age, you begin to become aware of your surroundings and who people think you're supposed to be. So when other white kids found out I was a black, after we had been playing many years before that, they then found out I was black. I found out I was black, didn't really know because you're such a little kid. They began to treat me differently and began to put me in stereotype. They began to just treat me like the stereotypes they've seen on TV. What's up, Matt? You going to the hood after school? I'm like, no, man, I live in the neighborhood across the street from you. you know, and kids are taught those things. They learn those things. that's not the natural state because, like I said, when you're little, you're just playing and having fun. And so, as they get older, and as you get older, they began to, do that separate America thing. We're here, you're there. So there's probably a million examples I could give. I don't want to bore you with them, but it's trying to give you some examples of what I'm talking about. Things that might have seemed normal to you were not normal to us. My wife tells me often, especially when I start talking about this, she said, I had no idea there were two Americas. I was just living my life doing what I'm doing. And I was like, yeah, I can see that. We're not making things up. This is real. This is happening. And I would tell her about things in my life, and then she would listen. And then as she began to open up her eyes and watch and see things, it began to become really real to her. I can think of one time we were in a grocery store, and I wasn't dressed, great. I had on jeans, and it was kind of cold. I had a hoodie on. Um, the hood wasn't up. I think I had a baseball hat on, and the security guard was literally a white security guard was following me around the store, and this happened for like 10 minutes, and Amy was like, "What is he doing?" I'm like, "He's following me because he thinks I'm something in his head that I'm really not." So I can take that situation and get angry, and want to fight back and fuss and argue with him, or which probably wouldn't turn out well, or I can try to put him at ease, and maybe I take off my hoodie. Maybe I move slower, something to relax him. Now I shouldn't have to do that, okay, but that's the world we live in, and some of the stories that you probably hear on the news are people dealing with that reality. When you hear about black kids or black people arguing or fussing back with police or other people, I obviously wasn't there and don't know all the situations, but I can guarantee a lot of them were probably something familiar, where you have, a white police officer or somebody treating the black person or the minority in a way that they've created in their head, and the black person's like, that's not who I am. I'm a person just like you. I have rights, I have feelings, I have a family. You can't treat me like this. I'm a human being. And get angry about it and begin to argue and fuss back with the cop or the person. Cops like, I feel threatened, and shoots them or arrests them, or there's an argument, you know, whatever the situation may be. This is probably a lot of what's happening. And so I would say, white people, um, I'm not saying as far as employment is concerned, you're just giving jobs away to black people. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, you know, if you're put in that situation, whether it's education, job, employment, shopping at the store, whatever the situation is, I would say just be conscious or aware of the world you may not be familiar with. And again, communicate, don't educate, and just be humane and treat everybody as the way you would want to be treated. It's such a simple thing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Um, so yeah, there's two Americas. We still live in it. I deal with it every day of my life, whether I'm at the gas station, you know, being in the cliche elevator with people, um, working with other people, whatever it may be. It's just, a reality that black people and minorities are aware of, because we have to exist in mainstream America. We have to go to mainstream America. We have to deal with white people in order to exist in the United States of America. I would say white people don't have to come to us. They don't have to come work with us. I would say for the most part, as you get to the upper echelons of the community, you would have white people who are able to exist within their world, which may not include any other minorities of any kind, because everything they have and that they need is there. And it may not be a welcoming community towards minorities if it's a neighborhood or whatever the area is. So I've encountered a lot of that in my life. Not mean to ramble here, where I've run into white people who were perfectly nice people, had no idea that any of this existed because they've never had to encounter it. And in what scenario would they? You know, um, my wife, for example, perfectly fine, polite, great human being, white lady, had no idea any of this was real until she married a black man and began to see things because she's now a part of my life. And Matt, why are you behaving this way? Or what happened there? Or what was that? Or why did this person do that? Or how did that happen? Or things begin to not make sense. And then I'm explaining to her, well, this is the world. This is my reality. And hopefully this is clear and makes sense. And if you have questions or if I wasn't clear about anything, email me, talk to me. Please do. Um, Share the video with your friends. Start the conversation and dialogue. Be humane to other people. Communicate. Don't educate. Be conscious and aware of your surroundings and what you're doing. Um, and I would say black people as well. Don't corner yourselves off because you're probably frustrated or tired of white people possibly not understanding your reality. I would say we have to get in it together. We have to keep working with each other. If we want to bring down these walls that people like Donald Trump keep trying to build.